All right, sound on. Video on. All right, let's do this. All right, you ready?
I'm ready to go.
All right. Hello and welcome to season 2, episode 30 of the Hockey Nuts podcast. My name is Wayne. I'm here once again with Steve. How's it going tonight, Steve?
Going very good, Wayne. This is a another historic podcast for you and I. It's our 75th,
It
if
is.
my
That's
count is
right.
correct. Our 75th podcast together.
That is
Now,
correct.
that's starting to get up there.
Yep.
Um,
Yes, by
I'm
about the middle of next year, well, probably November, around Thanksgiving next year, if my math is correct, we'll hit that century mark.
the 100th podcast,
Yep.
but that's pretty darn good.
Yep. So we're here once again. We're a little bit, we're 8 days out from our last podcast. We did one last Wednesday, and it is now Thursday night. We weren't able to pull one off last night, so we're here tonight to do one. And I've been battling a bit of a cold for the last week, so my voice may sound a little bit different than normal, but I'm here either way, coughing or not, but I'll be here. I don't know who I got this thing from, but I've been fighting it for the last couple of, probably since Friday actually. So,
Mhm.
but there's been a lot of hockey over the last weekend.
Yes, there has.
Oh, Friday and Saturday and Sunday I didn't get to watch anything because I worked all day, then refereed, so I wasn't home at all from 7 in the morning till 11 at night. But Friday and Saturday I got to watch quite a bit of hockey, but it wasn't of the NHL variety. It's been a
Right.
lot of college hockey because the college hockey NCAA tournament is going on. Even though my Maine Black Bears are not involved, we have a number of teams that play Maine, so I've got some good interest in that tournament as well, and I tend to watch that every year because it's kind of like watching a whole bunch of Game 7s back to back to back. You got
Back to back. Yeah.
because it's single elimination, single game elimination, sudden death, so to speak. So every game is potentially the last game of the season for each team involved. So because of that alone, that makes that tournament incredibly fun to watch. So we'll talk more about that later on in the show. But in the meantime, we got to get into some NHL talk. There's obviously been a bunch of news stories around the week. More and more teams are getting knocked out as more and more teams are starting to clinch. The numbers of teams that have done neither is dwindling down. So we're getting on my standings board. The X's and the E's are starting to be more numerous. So as teams are clinching and then getting eliminated. So we got all that to talk about, and let's start with our three favorite teams, which of course is your Rangers, my Bruins, and our local Carolina Hurricanes. Which
Right.
team you want to start with tonight?
Why don't we start with Carolina?
All right, they've actually
Um,
been pretty good in the last few days.
They have been playing good. They have been playing good. I don't know if they are mathematically eliminated yet.
They're not mathematically eliminated, but they certainly are realistically eliminated. They were heading into the game. Let's see. Let's go back a little bit further, back to the 22nd, which is the last game that, or the first game that they played since we last podcasted. They won 6-5 against Arizona, and then they won 5-2 against Ottawa on the 24th, and then they won another game against Ottawa 4-1. So it was the first game was at Ottawa, the second game was here. And that was on the 26th, so a home and home there. They swept that. Then they went into New Jersey, and New Jersey is one of the teams that they're chasing. New Jersey is one of the teams that they probably have to pass in order to make a Stanley Cup a playoff spot. And going into that game, they were 5 points back of New Jersey with 7 or 8 games left to play.
Right.
And, of course, being that's a team that they're chasing and a team that they have to pass, those are games that they have to win. They absolutely had to win that one, and unfortunately, they didn't. Um,
Yep.
So they could have. Actually, no, they were 7 points back going into the game. They could have gotten to 5 points back, but because they lost, they are now 9 points back. So it's a 4-point swing.
Yep.
That game going either way.
Right.
So unfortunately, now that they are 9 points back, yes, they're technically not mathematically eliminated, but that will probably happen this weekend, I would expect. They're getting close.
Yeah.
I haven't done the math lately, but
All New Jersey, I'm looking at it right now.
oh, you okay?
They can't catch Columbus. So the only team that they could be the weak wild card team.
Yep.
They cannot be the strong wild card team.
Okay.
And they cannot catch any team except New Jersey. And they are 9 points behind New Jersey with 5 games left to play.
Yep.
So if my math is correct, if they won every game they have left, they get 10 points.
Yep.
And if New Jersey lost every game, the Carolina Hurricanes would make the playoffs
By 1 point.
by 1 point. But you've also got Florida in the mix,
Yep.
and they have 7 games left to play. So if Florida could not win, I don't know a tiebreaker situation between those two teams, but Florida could not win more than 2 games, and they would tie in terms of points with Carolina.
Yep.
So Carolina still has a life support chance, I guess, but they're not eliminated. As we do this podcast right now, and probably at the end of it, they have not been eliminated from the playoffs. So
Yep.
Once again, here we go. We get to the last week of the season, and the Hurricanes are still in it.
Yep. That was the case last year, and I think the year before that too. Yep.
But this one was a lot stronger push this year
Yeah.
than either of the last 2 years, wouldn't you say?
Well, they've been so inconsistent. The team seems to have enough talent to do it. It's just they can't score the goals. They can't get over the hump. They were missing that 5+ game winning streak that every team that's above them seemed to have at least 1 5, 6, 7 game winning streak. Carolina just did not put one of those together. I think the most they ever won was 4 in a row.
Right.
And then they take a step back. But that game against New Jersey was a big, huge, fat nail in the coffin for the Carolina Hurricanes, and the players knew it too. The looks on their faces at the end of that game, said it all. They were very disappointed, dejected, whatever you want to call it. But you could tell that was pretty much their last gasp right there. If they couldn't have beat New Jersey, then that pretty much is over for them.
Right.
For this year.
I think, when you get down to it, it's always good in your thought process if you're an athlete or in the middle of a chase. You don't have to be an athlete. You can be a competitive person in any sport you're in. And if you can win, and then a game gets eliminated, and then you win, and you keep winning those games that as the season closes down, you got 3 games left, 2 games left, and you're winning, and you get eliminated. You feel good about that. Hey, gosh, but we kept winning. When you lose, it really does, especially against New Jersey, who's the only team they can catch now.
Yep.
I'm sure it had to be a very tough defeat.
Yep. And they played New Jersey a lot recently. In the last month, they've played them 3 times, and I think they've lost all 3. I could be wrong about that, but I know they've lost at least 2 of the 3.
Right.
I can't remember. There's one game there that was close late, and I can't remember if they pulled out a win in that one or maybe it was a 3-point game and New Jersey still got a point or something like that.
I don't like to say anything nice about the Devils, Wayne, but by golly, Florida has been dogging them for a month now, and New Jersey has not let up. they have continued to stay on top of
And
things.
Florida had a big setback loss last night too, or not last
Yep.
night? Was it last night
Uh,
or the night
they
before?
might have been. It was either
Er, Earlier
it
this
was.
week, anyway.
Yep.
They had a big setback loss where they were playing. It was
Toronto.
Toronto. Yep.
And it was last night, I believe.
Yeah, it was last night. And they knew they needed to get a win there because that was the extra or one that at the time going into the game, Florida was 2 games in hand on New Jersey, and going into that game, Florida actually held their own fate on whether or not they make the playoffs. Meaning,
Right.
no matter if New Jersey were to win every game they had remaining in the season,
Hmm.
as well as Florida doing the same, Florida would ultimately get that playoff spot because of those games in hand. Well, one of those 2 games in hand was last night. New Jersey did not play. Florida did play, and Florida had the opportunity to get within 1 point of New Jersey. Are they 3 points out right now?
They're 3 behind the
Yeah.
Devils.
So they had the opportunity to get to 1 point out last night, and they failed to do so. They fell down 3-0 in the first period and scratched and clawed the whole game to try to get back, and they just couldn't get back. I watched the third period of that game, and they threw everything and the kitchen sink at Toronto, and they just couldn't get it by the goalie there.
Yep.
So New Jersey, I'm sorry, Florida, you could see on the looks on their faces at the end of that game that they really needed that win. So now
Not over
Florida's
for them though. They still have.
yeah.
They'll be clawing and scratching all the
Oh
way
yeah.
down to 2 or 3 games
They
left.
they now can still make the playoffs quite easily, but their own fate is not in their hands anymore.
Right.
If New Jersey wins the rest of their games,
It's over.
it's over for Florida. No matter what Florida does.
Yep.
That's kind of the sentiment last night with Florida is going into that game, Florida still had control of their own destiny. Now they don't.
Right.
Now Florida needs to win lots of games, pretty much all their games, and New Jersey, they need New Jersey to lose at least 1 game in order to regain control again. So that's just the way it is. But yeah. We're
Yeah.
heading right down to it, and things are close there in the East. But it is just a 9-team race for 8 spots at this point. Well, several of those teams have already clinched. Boston, Tampa Bay. Toronto, I don't think, has officially clinched yet, but they're right there. They're right on the – I think the next win, Toronto will be clinched. Yeah, only Tampa Bay and Boston have clinched so far in the East. But really only Florida, New Jersey, Columbus, Toronto, Philadelphia, Pittsburgh, Washington are the only teams left that have a shot at getting in. And of those teams, one of those is going to be left out.
Right.
And right now, I think it's going to be Florida at this point because they've kind of sputtered a little bit of late.
Yes. Well, Florida is,
I think they're running out of gas.
They made a gallant run of it.
Yeah.
But I tell you, New Jersey, and even when they were sputtering, Florida sputtered equally with them. It was never a case, Florida went 8-1, pulled themselves into the race. Then they went 8-1 again, pulled themselves up even further, and got right up into the 9th spot, and did it in a series of about 15 games, 20 games.
Yep.
Made a go of it. But then, ever since that period, and we're talking about a month and a half, they've been fighting to try and catch New Jersey. Sometimes it's been Columbus, although Columbus moved ahead with that 9-game winning streak. But they could never catch New Jersey. New Jersey continued to match them. Win, they'd win. Lose, New Jersey would lose. So there'd be no ground gained. I wouldn't even be surprised if the game was an overtime decided game and each team picked up a point. But Florida could never get above the 1 point behind New Jersey.
Yep. Yeah, Florida's just trailing. So we'll see what the last week entails. I think, we do have exactly 1 week left, right, after this weekend.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. Yep.
So should be interesting. Should be fun to see. But, yeah, you're going to see teams clinching left and right this week as we get closer and closer to the end of the season. The last game, well, it was going to be the last day of the season, is going to be a week from Saturday, the 8th. Is it the 8th, 7th? What is
Yeah.
next Saturday?
Next Saturday is the
The
7th.
7th. Where 15 games, so that means 30 out of 31 teams will be playing on that day.
Right.
But because of that canceled game or that postponed game, there is going to be one game on the 8th. That's that Florida-Boston game that got postponed back in, was it November? December?
Right.
I can't remember when it was
Yep.
now.
They'll be the only team playing.
Yep, that'll be the only one game on the 8th, but everybody else finishes on the 7th. So we've got a huge night of hockey on the 5th and a huge night of hockey on the 7th with lots and lots of games, and then everything comes to a close, and then we start playoffs.
That's right.
So let's get back to the Bruins real quick because we haven't really gone over their week. They've kind of sputtered this week, but I don't think it's due to poor play. I've watched most of the games, either live or on replay, and the Bruins, despite everything going on, they're actually playing very well. But what's killing them right now is the injuries, and the highlight that I'm inserting into the beginning of this show. It talks about talking about it's basically the finish up of the win against Minnesota, and basically the Bruins announcer just lists all of the players that the Bruins are missing due to injury, and it's just remarkable that they're actually able to compete. And they had a tough schedule this week. They had St. Louis, Dallas, Minnesota, and Winnipeg on their schedule this week, and they managed to get points out of all but one of those games. The Dallas game was a 3-2 regulation loss. They had an overtime loss in St. Louis, an overtime win against Minnesota, and a 5-4 shootout loss at Winnipeg. So tough schedule this week, all on the road. And they managed to get 2, 3, 4 points out of a possible 8, with missing no less than 6 regular players on any given night. And the way it's been going for the Bruins lately is they get one guy back and another guy goes out almost immediately. Like, for example, they get Bergeron back and then Grzelcyk gets hurt. And then, it's just the way it's been the last couple of weeks for the Bruins. But none of them are big, huge, season-ending injuries. They're all little day-to-day, little nagging injuries. So,
right.
Right now it looks like everybody's going to be back for the playoffs. But for right now, they're just they're playing basically a whole line short every night.
Yeah.
Which is testing their depth for sure. So I'm not putting a whole lot of stock into the games that are going on right now just because the Bruins have already clinched. They're trying to catch Tampa Bay for that first place, and it'll be great if they get it, but they're pretty much locked into that 2 spot if they don't. It doesn't appear that they're going to drop all the way to the 3rd spot and have to go on the road to start the playoffs, but it's just one of those things. It's a lot of injuries right now. So the results on the ice aren't quite where they had been, but despite all that, the team is still playing pretty well overall.
Right.
So that is good.
Yes.
Now the Rangers, on the other hand, have been winning a lot, haven't they? Well, no, they haven't.
They've been playing tight games. They've been in games. They should have won last night against Washington. Washington scored with a minute to go in the game.
Yeah, I saw that.
With an empty net, of course.
Yep.
To tie the game, and it went into overtime. And actually, the final score was 3-2. The Rangers lost in overtime 3-2 in that game. They got a point out of it. But if you go back to the beginning, the game against Philadelphia, Alexander Georgiev was in net. Henrik was still hurt from the back injury he had in the game, where he did a cartwheel on the ice. The Flyers game was another game. I really felt we should have won that game. But Philadelphia, again, on their home ice, they came back and won that game 4-3. And I'm trying to remember the big. I think it was Mika Zibanejad had a big game that night, but New York lost in the waning minutes of that game. Then the Buffalo the Sabres game, we won 5-1 going away. That was really never a game, and Jack Eichel was not even really present on the ice. My wife and I both talked about it. He just wasn't a part of the offense that night, and I'm not sure what was going on there, but maybe the Rangers did a great job at shutting him down. Alexander Georgiev again was in net that night, and he was in net for the first game against Washington, as we had the home and home. The first game was in the Garden, and that game was on March the 24th, a game that Georgiev really did not play well. And I feel bad because they've sent him down to Hartford now, and they sent him down after that game concluded. But I really felt like Alexander Georgiev had played very well, and really could have taken the backup job against Andre Pavlik, could have taken it away from him. But I guess the way the Rangers are looking at it, as he would have to have been stellar in his opportunities that he had during the time that Pavlik was injured.
Well, do you happen to know if Georgiev is waiver exempt still?
I don't.
Meaning he can go down without passing through waivers? That might be a bigger factor on whether or not he went down, because Pavlik definitely is not. He would have to pass through waivers.
Right. Well, that could be. That could be what the reasoning behind it is. Wayne, you know what? I didn't even look into that. That may be the reason. But he was sent down after that game. They lost 4-2, and he was on the ice. They scored 3 goals. They were up 3-0, and Vigneault pulled him, put Andre Pavlik in. Pavlik wound up giving up a goal. I think we were behind 4-0 in that game, and then came back and scored 2 goals, one of them being from Elias Anderson, the rookie. Scored his first NHL goal. His parents were there. Big celebration took place. But the Rangers came up short in that game, and really Washington deserved to win. But the game last night, we scored first. We played better than they did. We just choked in the end, which we've done. This hasn't been the first time we've done that this year, with Washington scoring with a minute to go. So we got a point, but no win. And I think the players they know they're eliminated, but they're not giving up in these games. They're fighting through and trying to get a win each night. So that's a good sign.
Yep. All right. Well, yeah, and I did check. Georgiev is definitely waivers exempt, so that means Rangers could send him down without exposing him to waivers. So that's probably why he gets sent. They probably think he did outplay Pavlik, but they can't send Pavlik down.
Right.
And they need to keep room on the roster to start, or a lot of the teams that are eliminated from the playoffs right now are giving some of their younger players a chance to play. They're coming up with. I've noticed a lot. They're coming up with these quote unquote injuries to their star players so that they can put them on IR to make room on the roster to bring up these young kids to let them play.
Right.
There's only 23 spots on a roster still, so they probably got a good look at Georgiev. They like what they saw, and they sent him down back to the minor leagues.
And Pavlik signed a 1-year contract last year.
Yeah, so he'll be gone anyway.
It's going to be interesting.
He'll be unrestricted. Yep.
Yeah.
Just a quick side comment, and we could probably use this to lead off our Western Conference talk. On the chat, on the live stream, on the YouTube side of things, Social Hockey Fan 97 asks, will the Ducks miss the playoffs? So, with that, let's head into the Western Conference.
Okay.
Talking about everything going on there. You've got, of course, Nashville, Winnipeg, Vegas have already clinched. Minnesota is the third-place team in the Central. San Jose is the second-place team in the Pacific, and LA is third. St. Louis and Anaheim are currently sitting in the wild card spots. And then Colorado and Dallas are the two teams on the outside looking in that still have a shot at getting in. I don't see Calgary as having a legitimate shot. They're 11 points back, even though they haven't been technically mathematically eliminated yet, or maybe they have.
Yeah, I think Calgary's out, Wayne.
Okay, maybe they
Calgary has
did.
been eliminated.
Maybe they did within the last day or two.
Yeah, if they win the rest of their games, they can't catch Anaheim.
Okay, so, but you got a logjam right there. So you've got Calgary, you've got L.A. Or not Calgary. You've got Anaheim, you've got L.A. and San Jose and St. Louis and Colorado, all sitting right there. Although San Jose is pretty much locked in.
They've broken away from that pack.
So it's pretty much a 4-team race at this point.
Right.
Blues, Avalanche, Kings, Ducks.
Right.
In your mind, which do you think is getting in? And I don't have the schedule for each team's games remaining. St. Louis has played one less games than the rest of them, so that gives them an advantage. But San Jose, L.A., Anaheim, and Colorado have all played 77.
Right.
They all have 5 games left.
The St. Louis Blues, who we haven't badmouthed them, but we've kind of we've talked realistically about them. They haven't been playing well until now.
Yeah.
They've won 6 in a row. They're one of the hottest teams in the NHL. So if you look at this playoffs situation right now, Dallas, by golly, they're in trouble. They've got 5 games left.
Yeah, they had a losing streak that they just snapped there a couple of nights ago. So,
right, they really have to win. They can only afford maybe 1 loss, and then and even at that, that's dangerous.
Yeah, Dallas is 5 points back.
Dallas is 5 points back, and they got to have 8 points. They really do.
Yep.
So with five games left, they got to win 4 of them. That's how I see it. So they're a step down from these other teams that you talked about, Wayne. The 4 teams, 3 of them get in: Colorado, Anaheim, St. Louis, and L.A. If you look at those 4 teams, the team that's playing the best right now is the St. Louis Blues, and they are really playing well. They're playing well enough that if they continue on this pace and put together another 3 wins, I would say they're in the playoffs at 95, 97 points. Without much trouble. If you're pulling for Anaheim, they've lost, and in their last 10, they're 5-4-1.
Yep.
What they basically have to do, as I see it, at 91 points with 5 games to play, they need to pick up 3 wins. They need to get 6 points in those last 5 games. I think if they, in fact, I think 96 points may be enough.
All right, I've pulled up the schedule for the 4 teams that are right close together: Colorado, Anaheim, St. Louis, L.A. All right, Colorado has Chicago, Anaheim, L.A., San Jose, and St. Louis left on the schedule. Wow, they're all playing each other.
Yep.
Anaheim, L.A. These are all going to be great games, I tell you. Colorado, Minnesota, Dallas, Arizona left. St. Louis has Vegas, who's actually been struggling of late. Arizona, who's actually been playing really well of late. Arizona beat Vegas last night, by the way. Yeah. Washington, Chicago, and Colorado. And then, of course, L.A. has Arizona, Anaheim, Colorado, Minnesota, and Dallas. So all these games where they play each other, that's going to determine who gets in and who gets out.
Yep.
Quite frankly, it's going to come right down to those games.
Yep.
So these games between that Anaheim LA game tomorrow night, that is going to be a big one for both LA and Anaheim.
That's a huge game.
Colorado's basically playing all the teams.
Yep. if Anaheim can pick up, I'm going to say 5 points in their remaining 5 games. If they get 5 points, I think they're in.
I think they're going to need more than that.
You think the cutoff is going to be more than 96 points?
Yep.
Well, Wayne, you might be right. I don't know. I think it's going to be 96 points. Now, I don't know what the tiebreaker is with Colorado and Anaheim.
Of course, with all these teams playing each other, there's no way that they're all going to get 96. So, yeah, you could be right. 95, 96 points might get them there because they're all playing each other. So, yeah. Yeah, it's going to be fun. It's going to be fun to watch those games.
Oh, absolutely. I think Anaheim gets in though, and I think they're worthy of those teams. I think they're worthy of a playoff position. They've been right there all year.
Yeah.
On the bubble. So,
So who do you leave out? You think Colorado? They've lost 2 in a row.
Well, I would have said St. Louis. I really would have until they won 6 in a row.
Yeah, exactly. Because they were before that 6-game winning streak. They were sucking. They were really.
They weren't playing well at all.
They weren't playing well at all.
So they've obviously plugged them in, and they're playing like the St. Louis we really think they should have played all year long.
But even though they've only won 6 in a row, they're still. They're only a point up. They could easily drop back off. That 6-game winning streak turns into a 3-game losing streak. They're out. They're on the outside looking in. So.
Yep. The next 3 games are crucial for all these teams.
Yep. Yeah, because they're all playing each other.
Right. You see a team go 3-0 in those 3 games. If they win their next 3, they're in.
Yep.
So that's how I see it. That's how I break it down.
Yeah, it's basically at this point four teams fighting for 3 spots. So one of those 4, L.A., St. Louis, Anaheim, Colorado's out.
Yep.
I'm leaning towards Colorado being the team that's out just because just looking at play of late, and I mean within the last week, Colorado has kind of cooled off where the other 3 have continued to play either really well or decent anyway.
Right.
So, yeah, but I agree with you. I think Dallas is too far back to go. Calgary is mathematically eliminated, and Edmonton, Chicago, Vancouver, Arizona were all eliminated a couple of weeks ago. So, all right. So, anything else you want to add about the overall look of things before we start getting into some of the individual stories?
No, I think we covered it pretty good, Wayne. I don't have anything else. Yeah.
All right, cool. Let's head into.
I hate that the Calgary Flames aren't making the playoffs, though. They're a fun team to watch, and I hate they're not making the playoffs. I really, really am.
No, they'll be back next year.
Yep.
I think they just got. They had a bad string of injuries there for a while. Mike Smith got hurt. That didn't help their matters any. Yeah, I think they'll be back. They've got a core of players that are just too good not to make the playoffs.
Yeah.
Multiple years in a row. So, all right, let's move on to transactions, and there were actually a few this week. Quite a few this week, actually. The biggest one, Zdeno Chara signed a $5 million contract for next season with the Bruins on Wednesday. The 41-year-old defenseman, who is the Bruins captain, could become an unrestricted free agent on July 1st. He can earn $1.75 million in incentives as part of this contract. Chara's been the Bruins captain since the 06-07 season after he signed as an unrestricted free agent from the Ottawa Senators on July 1st, 2006. The oldest defenseman in the NHL, he has 23 points and a plus 26 rating, averaging 23 minutes of ice time in 68 games this season. Based on the way Chara played the season, GM Don Sweeney said he had no qualms about signing him to another contract. Chara is playing the final season of a 5-year contract with an average annual value of $7.5 million. Although this year's salary is only about $4 million, but in terms of salary cap, they look at the average annual value. So the cap hit is 7.5. Even though his actual salary is only $4 million this year, it was a very front-loaded contract.
Mm-hmm.
Chara, who won the Norris Trophy, is voted the NHL's best defenseman in 08 and 09, and the Stanley Cup with the Bruins in 2010-11, has 627 points in 1,418 games in 20 NHL seasons with the Islanders, Senators, and Bruins. He was a third-round draft pick in 1996. So I was looking for reaction from I'm a member of a number of different Boston Bruins fan groups, I guess, Facebook groups, whatever you want to call them. And I was looking for a lot of fan reaction because the general sentiment going on all season long was the Bruins better not sign Chara. He's old. He's done. Da-da-da. Move on. Bring the kids up. Yada, yada, yada. When this came down, I'm like, oh, here we go. Bruins fans are going to be up in arms. And quite frankly, I haven't seen a whole lot of negativity towards the Bruins brass for making this deal, because I think it actually is a good thing. First of all, Chara is playing better this year than he has probably the last 3 or 4 years. He's played really well. And he attributes that to some changes he made to his diet, I guess he says, and his workout regimen. I guess he's on a kind of vegetable-based diet, I think is what he said he's doing. And he's always been a workout nut. So he stayed in great shape, and he's kind of, he'll be 42 years old next year.
Yeah.
And he's still in the Boston Bruins top pairing. He's not going to score 50 points like he once did, but as a stay-at-home guy, I mean, he's still got that amazing reach, and it's just incredibly difficult to get by him anywhere near the net. So he's still a very effective defensive defenseman, for sure. But if you look at the Bruins' salary cap situation, the Bruins have a whole bunch of these young kids: Anders Bjork, Ryan Donato, Danton Heinen, and Jake DeBrusk, Sean Corrali, Charlie McAvoy, Matt Grzelcyk, Brandon Carlo. See, these are all guys that are playing key roles on this team. They're all under entry-level contract, but there's only 2 of these entry-level contracts that are up this season. And that is Corrali and Grzelcyk's contract. So, yeah, both of those guys have contributed quite a bit to the Bruins, but neither one is considered a cornerstone player for this franchise. So there's no, like last summer, the Bruins the problem with the salary cap is that they knew they had to sign David Pastrnak, and they knew it was going to cost quite a bit because it was going to be, he was coming out of his entry-level contract, and this was going to be his first big boy contract. So they had to save cap space for his enormous deal. This year, they don't have that. If anything, they're actually going to be going down in salary for this one season just because they don't have any looming restricted free agents that they have to make room for. So in this case, it's a 1-year deal. Now, 2 years from now, if this would have been a 2-year deal, we'd have a problem because after next season, they're going to have to re-sign Donato. They're going to have to re-sign Heinen. DeBrusk still has another year, but McAvoy, Carlo, these are going to be expensive contracts because these guys are key members of the team.
Right.
So next year they're probably not going to be able to afford a $5 million contract for Chara. And if he's still effective as a player, maybe he re-signs for 1 or 2. Well, probably not
right.
1. Probably not 1, but 2, maybe 3 next year. So all in all, I think it helps in this case. He's been a great mentor for the younger defensemen that they've got. So that alone is worth something. Never mind his play on the ice, which has actually been pretty decent despite his advanced age. So, yeah, why not bring him on for another year? And technically, in terms of, yes, this is a raise from this year to next. He's making $4 this year. He'll get $5 next year. But in terms of salary cap, it's actually a drop of $2.5 million.
Mm-hmm.
So
That's good.
So yeah, it's a win-win for everybody involved.
Right.
All right. Let's go on to the next story. I got to pull it back up because I had the Bruins salary cap situation put up. All right. Next one. Marcus Nudivara signed a 4-year contract with the Columbus Blue Jackets on Thursday. That's today. The 23-year-old defenseman has 22 points in 59 games for the Blue Jackets, who selected him in the 7th round of the 2015 NHL draft. He had 7 points and was +7 in 66 games as a rookie in 2016-17 and had a goal and assist in 2 Stanley Cup playoff games. Nudivara signed a 2-year entry-level contract with the Blue Jackets in May of 2016 after playing 2 seasons for Karpat and Liga, Finland's top professional league. One thing that stands out for me in this one, 22 points in 59 games is actually really good considering where he was drafted. 7th rounder.
Right.
To get 22 points out of a 7th rounder, that's enormous. For the Blue
I didn't think about it that way. Yeah.
Yeah, he's not a top pairing defenseman for that team, but as a 5'6", sure. Why not? And it doesn't say. Did I even say how much it was? It's such a new story. They haven't. Yeah, it just says a 4-year contract, so it doesn't say exactly how much he was making on that one. But definitely a good contract there, depending on assuming the number is right. Mm-hmm. All right, as far as all the other signings that I have this week, I'm basically going to list a bunch of them. Got a lot of players coming out of college right now, and juniors. As the juniors and the college teams are getting eliminated from their respective playoffs, you got a number of these guys that are choosing to, in the case of college, are choosing to end their college eligibility and turning pro. Or in the case of juniors, they can sign them, bring them up, and they can play up to 9 games, and then they can go back to their junior team if they still have eligibility for juniors. But anyway, since we last recorded, when did we last record? The 21st?
We recorded last Wednesday night, which would have been the 21st. That's correct.
21st, okay. Well, I'll include the 21st. Christian Wolanin, Ottawa. Wiley Sherman, Boston. Otto Koivula for the Islanders. Ryan Lindgren with the Rangers. Tobias Geiser with the Capitals. Shane Gersich with the Capitals. Cam Johnson, Devils. Hayden Verbeek with the Canadiens. William Borgen with the Sabres. C.J. Seuss with the Jets. Dylan Sikora with the Chicago Blackhawks. Mitch Ranke with the Blues. Nolan Stevens with the Blues. Austin Poganski with the Blues. Eric Robinson with the Blue Jackets. Jordan Greenway with the Wild. Adam Gaudette with the Canucks. Casey Middlestat with the Sabres. Yoni Tulula with the Blackhawks. Blackhawks have signed quite a few of these young kids. Dylan Gambrell with the Sharks. Henrik Borgstrom with the Panthers. Troy Terry with the Ducks. Blake Hillman with the Blackhawks. Jeremy Helvig with the Carolina Hurricanes. Dane Burks with the Pittsburgh Penguins. Felix Sandstrom with the Flyers. And then Andrew Sturts with the Senators. So those are all of the junior signings as of right now anyway that have signed over in the last week or so, or at least since we last recorded. Any of those players stand out to you as could make an impact? Not so much for next season, because we know, the teams that are out of the playoffs, these are signings to get players ready for next season. And some of these guys won't play this year, particularly if they're playing for a team that's not going to make the playoffs. a lot of these contracts don't go into effect until the fall.
I can.
But how about
Yeah,
playoff?
I can. Well, I mean, yeah, yeah. I actually Jordan Greenway with the Wild,
Yeah, that's going to
Troy
be.
Terry with the Anaheim Ducks.
Yeah, Troy Terry is going to be a nice addition for them.
You look at those two guys as far as now. I don't know a lot about Felix Sandstrom. I got to say, but Troy Terry will make an impact if they choose to bring him up to the big leagues. Jordan Greenway definitely. I mean, he's a big guy. They could put him on as a forward on the fourth line.
Yep.
Easily do that on that team.
Troy Terry could even crack the top 6. He's that good of a player.
Yes.
He's been lights out for both Team USA and the World Juniors and for Denver in college hockey.
Yep. So there's 2 players right there.
Yep.
Yeah, could help their teams in the playoffs.
Yep. Gambrell probably in San Jose might be able to help his team. If Buffalo was making the playoffs, Middlestat, that's a huge signing for them. He's going to be. Yep. It's going to be the Middlestat and
Jack Eichel
show going forward there. Both players are incredible players. Adam Gaudette is going to be a nice add for Vancouver when they play meaningful games again. But the rest of these guys, Dylan Sikora, he's another one that's one of the better players in college hockey. I think Ryan Lindgren's a nice add for the Rangers.
Yep.
We when we talked about the trade there, I said back then that he would be a nice piece for the Rangers to have, and they got him under the fold, although I don't think he starts playing till the fall. I don't think he's playing for the Rangers right away. So,
yeah.
So, yeah, a few teams followed in the footsteps of the Bruins when they signed Donato, is to get some of these college kids in there and get them playing. But, yeah, remains to be seen what these guys contribute to their respective teams. All right. So that's all the transactions I had for the week. There's quite a few of them, but let's move on to injuries. Matthew Tkachuk and TJ Brody of the Flames are likely to be out for the remainder of the season, each with an upper body injury. Tkachuk, a second-year forward, has missed 7 games since he was injured against the Islanders on March 11th. Brody, a defenseman who has not skated since being injured against the Golden Knights on March 18th, has missed 4 games. Jake Muzzin has an upper body injury and is week-to-week for the Kings. The 29-year-old defenseman left at 2:49 in the second period in a 3-0 win against the Flames on Monday after he fell awkwardly into the corner and on a hit by Flames forward Michael Ferland. Muzzin has 42 points and is plus 10 with 123 block shots in 74 games this season. Kevin Shattenkirk has announced that he will not return to the Rangers lineup this season. A 29-year-old defenseman who hasn't played since January 18th had surgery to repair a meniscus tear on his left knee on January 22nd, and he's still not ready to come back. Nick Foligno will be out 2 to 4 weeks for the Blue Jackets with a lower body injury. The NHL regular season ends April 8th, and the playoffs begin April 11th. Foligno was injured in a 2-1 loss to the Blues on Saturday, has 33 points in 72 games, including 19 in his past 30. He has 400 points in 768 games with the Blue Jackets and Senators. All right, stop right there for a minute.
Yep.
Because the Blue Jackets are a playoff team, and no offense to Jake Muzzin with the Kings, but Foligno is their captain.
Yep.
And whether or not he's putting up the points that he used to, because he's clearly not, he's still a key member of this team, being their captain.
Yeah, Nick Foligno, he has some spirit to him. He is definitely a positively put together guy. He's got a real positive charge, and so missing him both on the ice and in the locker room is hard on Columbus. They don't have their captain. If this turns out to be a 4-week injury, the Blue Jackets could end up being out of the playoffs before he's back. That's right.
So let's hope for the Blue Jackets that they can because one thing I don't want to see is I don't want to see a Blue Jackets team that has to go in and play Pittsburgh in the first round if they end up facing them.
Yeah.
And get swept out of the playoffs because they're missing too many of their pieces due to injury. You and I both are tired of seeing the Pittsburgh Penguins win the Stanley Cup, and we want to see someone different this year.
I agree.
We don't care who it is.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, unless it's the New Jersey Devils.
And we don't need them to get an easy right. And we don't need to give them an easy path to getting that third Stanley Cup.
Yeah. Yeah. I'll pull for the Soviets against the New Jersey. I will pull for Russia. The OAR team against the New Jersey Devils. Yeah.
Yeah, I feel as much for the Canadiens. But I don't have to worry about them in the playoffs this year. All right, another Calgary Flames injury. Sean Monahan will miss the rest of Calgary Flames season because of undisclosed injuries. 23-year-old center leads the Flames with 31 goals and is second with 64 points behind forward Johnny Gaudreau, who has 82 points. So the whole Sean Monahan. So 3 big injuries for the Calgary Flames. Kind of looks to me like they're just, like I mentioned earlier in the show, kind of throwing some guys on IR with these quote-unquote injuries to make some space on the lineup so that they can call up some of their younger players and see how they do at the NHL level.
And as well as I do, Wayne, right in line with what you're saying, a lot of these guys play hurt. A lot of them play hurt. So, okay, well, we're not in the playoffs, so you want to give this guy a shot. I'm still going to get my paycheck, and shut me down.
Yep. Yeah, it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
All right. Mike Green will have neck surgery, and the Detroit Red Wings defenseman will not play again this season. He'll have surgery on his cervical spine April 5th and will need at least 2 months to recover. The 32-year-old who played 2018 Honda All-Star Game can become an unrestricted free agent July 1st. That's going to be, 2 months? Well, no. He'll be healthy right around July 1st. I was going to say, if he's still hurt July 1st, he might not have any takers. He could be one of the bigger name free agents still on the market on July 1st. Yep. He's still putting up – he's not putting up point a game like he did when he was with the Capitals, but 33 points in 66 games as a defenseman is nothing to sneeze at.
No. Yeah, he terrorized me for years, several years there.
Yep.
When he played with the Capitals.
Yep. So, and another veteran, Jason Spezza, will be out or could be out for the remainder of the regular season for the Stars with a back injury. 34-year-old forward will be evaluated in 2 weeks. The regular season ends April 8th. Spezza missed his first game of the season, a 4-3 loss to the Capitals on Tuesday after leaving the morning skate early. He has 25 points in 72 games. So that's another one who was not scoring at the totals that he once did. It's just another nail in Dallas's coffin at this point. Jonathan Taves will miss a few games with an upper body injury in the Chicago Blackhawks center sustained against the Avalanche on Tuesday. He left in the third period of a 5-1 loss to the Avalanche. Will be reevaluated next week, Coach Joel Quenneville said. The 29-year-old's last shift came with 156 remaining. So kind of day-to-day for a team that's not going to make the playoffs. Brett Pesce and Victor Rask will not play again this season for the Carolina Hurricanes, each because of a shoulder injury. Pesce, a 23-year-old defenseman, has 19 points in 65 games. His .221 ice time, shorthanded, is second on the Hurricanes to defenseman Jacob Slavin. And Pesce played 20 minutes in a 7-3 loss to the Oilers on Tuesday. Rask, a 25-year-old center, has 31 points in 71 games this season. After 45 and 48 points the prior 2 seasons, he played 13 minutes, 51 seconds on Tuesday. Again, I think this is one of those, they're clearing space to make room to bring up some young kids. Mm-hmm. And they have. They brought up Zykov and they brought up Foegele, and both have played very well for the Canes since being recalled.
Agreed.
All right. So that's all the injuries I have for the week. Suspensions and fines, I didn't have any. I don't know if you saw any.
I haven't seen any suspensions and fines noteworthy, Wayne. None to discuss with you.
All right. So now it brings us down to other interesting stories that we saw. And there's a few of those. NHL announced on Wednesday the odds for the 2018 NHL Draft Lottery, which will be held Saturday, April 28th in Toronto. The 2018 NHL Draft Lottery will consist of 3 drawings. The first lottery draw will determine the club selecting first overall. The second lottery draw will determine the club selecting second overall. And the third lottery draw will determine the club selecting third overall. The 15 clubs that do not qualify for the playoffs, or the clubs that have acquired the first-round picks of those non-playoff clubs, will participate in the 2018 NHL Draft Lottery. The 12 clubs not selected in the 2018 NHL Draft Lottery will be assigned the 2018 NHL Draft selections 4 through 15 in inverse order of regular season points. The 2018 NHL Draft will take place at American Airlines Center in Dallas. The first round will be held Friday, June 22nd. Rounds 2 through 7 will take place Saturday, June 23rd. So, and there's a team in that draft that currently holds 2 lottery picks. And I can't remember who it is. Is it Vancouver?
Well, I wouldn't be surprised if it's Vegas.
Well, no, Vegas wouldn't be in there just simply due to the fact that they're in the playoffs, unless they own somebody else's. No, it's. I'm trying to remember who it is now, and I know the Islanders are one of the teams involved. Let me see. Calgary. Calgary owns the Islanders' first round. I'm sorry, the Islanders own Calgary's first round pick. And both teams are lottery teams. So the Calgary Flames will not be in the draft lottery because the Islanders hold their pick. So the Islanders will be in there twice. So if you put those two together, that will help increase the Islanders' odds of winning. Because
so out of the first 15 picks, the Islanders are going to select twice.
Right.
That's pretty darn good.
Yep.
In this draft.
Yep, and I'm pulling up the story here that has the actual odds. So the way that it's going to work is the team that finishes dead last in the NHL will have an 18.5% chance of winning the lottery. Number 2 is 13.5%. Number 3 is 11.5%. Number 4 is 9.5%. Number 5 is 8.5%, and then it goes down from there. From 7.5 down to 1% when you get to number 15. Now, the Islanders and the Flames are currently sitting probably in the middle to the lower end of that 15-team bracket.
Right.
So if you add the odds together of the 2 Islanders picks, they'll probably be roughly equivalent to like the 4th or 5th team.
So it looks like they're going to be selecting picks 11 and 12, something like that, 10 and 11.
Yeah, somewhere in there, because both teams they're in the lottery, but both teams are towards the bottom end. They're not. Neither one is going to finish dead last in the NHL. Put it that way.
That's very interesting news, Wayne.
Yep.
That really is. Yep.
So yeah, the Islanders have 2 shots at winning the lottery at this point. All right. The NHL's Board of Governors has approved changes for Rule 78-7, which is the coach's challenge for goaltender interference. The league announced Tuesday the changes were recommended by the NHL's general managers at their March meeting. We talked about this last week, where they're talking about the who has final say on goaltender interference. That's the change here, and it goes into effect as of Wednesday, March 28th. So the standard for overturning the call in the event of a goal call on the ice is that the NHL Situation Room, which shall include former referee in the officiating department and in the decision-making process, after reviewing any and all available replays and consulting with referee who made the original call, determines that the goal should have been disallowed due to interference of the goalkeeper. The standard for overturning the call in the event of a no-goal call on the ice is that the Situation Room, after reviewing any of all available replays and consulting with the referee who made the original call, determines that the goal on the ice should have been allowed because either there was no actual contact of any kind or the attacking player was pushed, shoved, or fouled by a defending player, causing the attacking player to come into contact with the goalkeeper. The attacking player's positioning within the crease did not impair the goalkeeper's ability to defend the goal and, in fact, had no discernible impact on the play. So, basically, in plain English, that just means that the situation room is going to have final say in some of these goaltender interference calls, which should at least make it a little bit more consistent because instead of having 33 referees, each with differing opinions on what is and what isn't goaltender interference, making these calls, you're narrowing it down to a smaller group of people. It's the situation room is gonna decide all of them. So it could be 10 people that make the decision from one night to the next. Overall. So hopefully we'll start seeing more consistency with those goaltender interference calls. All right. Masterton Trophy. The Bill Masterton Memorial Trophy is awarded annually to the Professional Hockey Writers Association to the player who best exemplifies the qualities of perseverance, sportsmanship, and dedication to hockey. A player from each team is nominated by the local chapter. Those nominations are being revealed on Tuesday, and actually they already did reveal them. The list will be narrowed to 3 finalists, and a winner will be named at the NHL Award Show in June in Las Vegas. All right, so players that have been named. I don't know if I want to go through the entire list, but just some highlighted ones. Bruins nominated David Backes. Let's see. Carolina nominated Jordan Stahl. Let's see. Columbus, Zach Werenski. Detroit Red Wings, there was no name beside. I'm not sure
that
why.
was weird. I'm looking at that. No name.
Yep. Roberto Luongo for Florida. Adam Larson with Edmonton. Let's see. Brian Boyle, the Devils. He's probably going to be one of the finalists.
I would think he would. He might even win that thing.
Yep. Chris Kreider for the Rangers. Claude Giroux, Flyers. Chris Letang, Penguins. Joe Thornton with the Sharks.
Hey, Chris Letang will be up there too.
Yep. Steven Stamkos with the Lightning. Tyler Myers with Winnipeg. Any others that stand out to you?
You got them. It's like I was going down the list and yep, check that one too.
So yeah, basically it's 30 nominees and it gets narrowed down to 3 finalists, and then those 3 I think end up going to the awards show, and then they announce the winner at the awards show, which is at the very end, basically right after the Stanley Cup is won within a week or so. All right, Martin Brodeur and Sean Burke were named Canada's general managers for the IIHF World Championship on Monday. The tournament will take place in Denmark from May 4th through the 20th. Brodeur is the winningest goalie in NHL history with 691 wins. Played all but one of his 22 seasons with the Devils, and he was a 3-time Stanley Cup champion, 4-time Vezina Trophy winner. He helped Canada win the gold at the 2002 Salt Lake City Olympics and the 2010 Vancouver Olympics. Burke played for 9 teams during his 18 NHL seasons, finishing with a record of 324, 341, and 9 with 101 ties. He won a silver medal with Canada at the 92 Albertville Olympics. So, the thing that killed Burke with his record and 9 different teams is he played for a lot of bad teams over the years. I remember Sean Burke. He played in the Carolina Hurricanes organization. I think he played. I think he left the Whalers before they moved down here, though. I don't think he ever wore a Carolina Hurricanes jersey.
Very interesting.
But he was a Whaler for a while. All right. H. Wayne Huizenga founding owner of the Florida Panthers, died on Friday at the age of 80. The Florida Panthers organization is heartbroken by the news of Wayne Huizenga's passing, owner Vincent J. Viola said. Mr. Huizenga's lifelong commitment to our community, his philanthropy, and his entrepreneurial spirit ensure that Huizenga family legacy will live on in South Florida. I'm continually inspired by Wayne's example and from his vision and his civic-minded leadership to his success-fostering environment of on-ice excellence, which continues to have a shaping influence on every step we take in South Florida community. He'll be remembered always by our Panthers family. Huizenga headed the ownership group that was awarded an expansion franchise by the NHL in 1992. The Panthers started playing the 93-94 season, and at the time was the most successful opening season for an expansion team until Vegas broke all those records this year. Panthers reached the Stanley Cup final in 1996, but were swept by the Colorado Avalanche. Huizenga also helped secure funds for BB&T Center, which has been the Panthers' home since it opened in 1998. On January 19th, the Panthers retired number 37, Huizenga's lucky number, in his honor. While owning the Panthers, Huizenga also owned the Dolphins of the NFL and the Marlins of the Major League Baseball, making him, for a time, one of the most dominant owners in North American professional sports. Wow, to own 3 different teams all at the same time.
Yes. And he was
one of them being an NFL team.
What was that? He was the owner of that movie rental place. I'm trying to remember. That's how he made his money.
Blockbuster.
Yeah, yep. He was the CEO for Blockbuster. That's really how he amassed his. It's one of the ways he amassed his fortune.
Yep. So yeah, didn't see the cause of death, but it almost, just from the sense of the article, it was almost either at least expected or, still sad nonetheless. Anyway, especially for his family. But yeah, Wayne Huizenga. I hadn't heard his name in quite a few years. After he sold the Panthers, he kind of faded out of the spotlight for a few years there. All right, NHL on NBC broadcaster Eddie Olczyk announced on the air on Thursday that he is cancer-free. I'm proud to say, final scan after chemo treatment, all the cancer is gone. We beat this thing, Olczyk said. I got the call on March 14th at 5:07 p.m. that my scans were clear. I never heard better phrase in my life. Now I'm 10 days on with the rest of my life, and that's the way I'm looking at it. The 51-year-old former NHL player was diagnosed with stage 3 colon cancer on August 4th. Olczyk was a forward for 16 seasons in the NHL and a member of the 94 Stanley Cup champion New York Rangers. So, great news.
Awesome news. That is a blessing. I love Eddie Olczyk, and the broadcast has sorely missed him this year. And I hope he gets back in the booth quickly. And I'm very, very happy for him.
I think he's already back.
I doubt very seriously. Well, he wasn't back last night. I had to listen to Mike Milbury.
Oh, okay.
Never pulls for the Rangers. Never really has a lot of good things to say about the Rangers. But,
well, he's a Bruin, so.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
But yeah,
one time, I think it was a relative of mine. One time we were talking, and she said, "Oh, I used to love to go to the Garden." And we talked, and finally she said, "Yeah, I just don't like watching NBC News with Mike Milbury. He doesn't like the Rangers." Yeah. I will not say her name on air, but she she made it very plain to me. He just doesn't like the Rangers, so I don't like to watch him.
Yep.
Yeah. Anyways, we're talking about Eddie Olczyk. Let's get back to it. I'm celebrating for Eddie Olczyk today at this news. I'm very happy, and he's he's a great guy. He's lively on the show. He's always got very good insight as a former player.
Yep.
Very good job. Yep. Without Eddie Olczyk, that broadcast suffers. So I'm very happy for him.
For sure. All right. So yeah, he'll probably be back full time in the fall. I imagine with the Blackhawks being eliminated, there's no rush to get him back in there. He might as well enjoy the rest of his spring and summer, because I'm sure the Blackhawks will be coming back with a retooled roster, and they'll be a dangerous team in very short order. So, all those long playoff runs, those guys get short summers. Those teams that go deep in the playoffs every year.
Mm-hmm.
All right, let's move on to honors and milestones. And the 3 stars of the week this week are Connor McDavid, Jake Allen, and Kyle Connor of the Winnipeg Jets. And, of course, Jake Allen plays for the Blues. And we all know that Connor McJesus plays for Edmonton. So McDavid is basically making a strong run for the Art Ross Trophy. He had 10 points last week and is looking like he'll probably win the Art Ross. Allen had a 3-0 week in net. And Connor got 6 points in just 4 games this week. So, I'm sorry, just 3 games. 6 points in 3 games. So, and Connor's picked up his game, especially since, Lane's back now, but Patrick Lane was hurt for a bit there.
Yep.
So.
102 points, though.
He filled in quite admirably. So, all right. And the other honor I had this week is of the college variety. Henrik Borgstrom, Ryan Donato, and Adam Gaudette were named finalists for Hobey Baker Award, which is given to the best player in NCAA hockey. And that was announced earlier today. And all 3 of those players have since signed with their respective pro teams that own their rights. Borgstrom, I think, we looked it up before. It was Borgstrom is in Florida, Donato with Boston, and Gaudette with Vancouver. I think. Trying to remember that.
Gaudette, Vancouver. Yeah, that sounds right.
Yeah. So, all right. That's all I have for honors and milestones. So let's head into the power rankings for this week. And
yes, sir. It is my turn this week. This is the last time I'm going to be doing the power rankings during the NHL regular season. So I put some thought into this, and I really studied and took my time, prepared for all of our listeners, so that I didn't sound like a dope while I was revealing them. So here we go. Starting at number 17, as you know, Wayne, I do an honorable mention each week. This may come as a dope-like thing, but I put the St. Louis Blues as the honorable mention because last week they weren't doing well at all. Last week they were just in the start of their 6-game winning streak, but they've come through this week. I put them at number 17, basically with a bullet. That's a team that I think is going to crack the top 16 next week.
Yep.
We may be even talking about them as a playoff team.
Yep.
Number 16, I have the Florida Panthers. Number 15, the Philadelphia Flyers. Number 14, the Columbus Blue Jackets. Number 13, the Colorado Avalanche. Number 12, the Los Angeles Kings. Number 11 is the Anaheim Ducks. So to that guy listening on Facebook, don't worry. I think Anaheim's going to make it and make it handily. Number 10, Pittsburgh. Number 9, the Minnesota Wild. Number 8, the Toronto Maple Leafs. Number 7, Washington. Number 6, and I tell you what, this team has really, really played well in the last 3 weeks to 4 weeks of the regular season. The San Jose Sharks. Yep. They are really a team looking on the upside going into the playoffs. And it's something to watch. Number 5, the Winnipeg Jets. Number 4, the Vegas Golden Knights. Number 3, the Boston Bruins. Number 2, I have the Tampa Bay Lightning. And the number 1 team this week in my power rankings, first time I've put them at number 1 this year, the Nashville Predators.
Very good.
I put them at number 1 before. It was way back in like December or November last year.
Yep. And as it comes to no surprise that your top 5 are actually the 5 teams that have officially clinched a playoff spot. So Winnipeg, Vegas, Boston, Tampa Bay, and Nashville have all clinched. Everybody else has yet to clinch.
Mm-hmm.
And just for the sake of, when I put it in the show notes, just for the sake of, I don't know what you want to call it, but I put all the teams that have been eliminated, basically from 21 through 31 on the show notes. And then all the teams that are still alive are above that. So just to... Because why would you put a team that's still alive in the playoff hunt above a team that's been eliminated in the power rankings?
That's right.
Doesn't make sense.
No, you're right.
So, all right. Let's take a look ahead at our team's weeks upcoming. And starting with Boston, they've got Tampa Bay tonight, and that is a battle for first place in the division. Boston is 1 point back in the playoffs, or in the standings, with a game in hand, mind you, on Tampa Bay. So Boston actually controls their own fate in terms of whether or not they're going to win the division. So, but they're playing Tampa Bay 2 more times this season, and first one is tonight. So these games will largely determine who's going to win the division and ultimately get to play the wild card teams. So it's Boston against Tampa Bay tonight, and then they play Florida tomorrow night. Both those are home games. Not tomorrow night. Saturday night is the Florida game. And again, they've got 3 games against Florida to finish the season. And then they've got Philadelphia at Philly on the 1st. And then they go to Tampa Bay on the 3rd and to Florida on the 5th. So Boston has 6 games remaining in their season. Is it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5? Sorry, 6, 7 games remaining in their season. And 5 of those 7 are against either Tampa Bay or Florida.
Yeah, they're playing. Every team they're playing is either playoffs or on the bubble.
Yeah.
You might as well say Florida right now is a playoff team because that's the type of hockey they have to play.
That's the type of hockey they're playing now, yeah.
Yep.
They're playing for their lives right now. So.
Yep.
So, yeah. Carolina, on the other hand, is not really playing for much other than, preparing themselves for next season, getting a look at some of the kids. That's pretty much all they're doing. It's kind of like an extended preseason for them. Mm-hmm. They've got Washington at Washington tomorrow night. That's Friday night. They've got the Rangers on Saturday at home. They've got Florida on the road on the 2nd and Philadelphia on the road on the 5th.
Yep.
So, kind of surprised you're not going to that Ranger game.
I'm not yet. This is the first year where we had season where my wife and I have not attended at least one game in a long time. Maybe 8 or 9 years now. It's been a long time. So we just we're not. It's not in the cards for us this year with the stuff that's gone on.
Just no time. Yep.
No time for that. Yeah. But that will be a great game.
Yep. I'm sure you'll be watching it on TV.
Absolutely. You get tickets to go. Now, if someone does give me an offer at free tickets,
you might make the time for that, huh?
I'll make the time to go. But unfortunately, we're not going to be able to make it this year.
Yeah. So, in addition to the Carolina game, they've got a pretty tough schedule themselves.
Yes, they sure do. And if there's anybody tooling around the locker room that's saying, "Hey, we still can, let's make a good showing of this. Let's just take it one game at a time and win." They're still, they're not mathematically eliminated. So
they've got Tampa Bay this week.
Yep.
On their schedule. They've got Carolina and New Jersey and the Islanders.
Oh, you're talking about the Rangers?
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm sorry. No, I was talking about Carolina. Carolina's not eliminated. We're eliminated, and the last game at the Garden is the game that's going to be tomorrow night against the Tampa Bay Lightning. That'll be the final home game.
Oh, really? Already? Okay.
Yeah, that's the final home game. They play tomorrow night, and then the remaining 4 games on their schedule are all road games. We go on a road trip starting on the 31st, which is the very next night, Saturday night in Raleigh against the Carolina Hurricanes. And then we play again on, I believe it's Tuesday night. That's correct. Tuesday the 3rd, we play the Devils at the Rock. And then we head on down to the Barclays Center and we play in Brooklyn on the 5th, which is a Thursday night. That's, I don't know. We'll either do our podcast Wednesday or Thursday, so we may be talking about that game for the following week.
Yeah, that road trip to New Jersey is a toughie for the Rangers, isn't it? That's a lot of travel there.
Yeah, they're not, yeah. They'll have difficulty lining up the flights too.
Gotta fly all the way from JFK to Newark, right?
Yeah. They'll hop a helicopter to get over there. Yeah.
And then turn around and fly from Newark over to where would they fly, to LaGuardia for the Islanders? Or would
Yeah,
they go to JFK?
yeah, yeah.
Makes it easy when you got two teams. Basically, they just take a bus. From the Garden over to the or wherever I'm sure. I don't know if they would bother to have the players drop their cars off at the Garden and take a bus from there, or would they find another central location, maybe at their practice facility, leave their cars there?
Right, they could. Their practice facility is in Terrytown.
I know the Bruins have been known to do that, where the players will leave their on a road trip instead of leaving the cars in downtown Boston, especially with that building, because the old footprint of the Garden was the players' parking lot for years and years and years. Well, they're developing that site now. They're building a big, huge hotel and convention center and all kinds of stuff right there now. So the players' parking is probably inside the building, for all I know, inside the Garden. But for road trips, they've been known to meet at Warrior Arena, which is just outside of downtown Boston, leave their cars there, and then take the bus to the airport from Warrior Arena instead of from the Garden. So Rangers probably do the same thing. So anyway, but besides that, we're coming right down to it. We've got Thursday through tonight, all the way through. We got basically 10 days left in the regular season.
Yep.
If my count is right.
Yep.
Because after Thursday the 5th, a week from tonight, after those games are done, because that's a busy night, there's 10 games on the 5th. After that night, there's only 20 more NHL games total across the whole league after the 5th to finish out the season.
I think, Wayne, by next Wednesday night, we're going to know who the playoff teams are. There may be a dangler in each conference, but we're going to know pretty much who's going to be in the playoffs
by the next podcast.
That Florida New Jersey Devil fight may go on beyond that, but the Western Conference as well. I think Dallas will be out by then.
Yeah,
but there'll be a dangler in each conference maybe.
Yep. All right. Well, good. Let's go ahead and talk a little minor league hockey in our minor league hockey minute.
Yes, sir.
And with that in mind, I didn't really have a story this week that I wanted to talk about. I know you want to talk about Sergei Zubov, so we'll just go ahead and do mine. Basically, I wanted to take a look at, because we really haven't done it this year, take a look at the American Hockey League and their current standings and see, just take a quick look at where they are and see which teams we think are going to get in the playoffs and which ones are not. And as I pull up the American Hockey League standings, Their format is kind of similar, but really not to the NHL. What they do, there's 4 divisions in that league. There's 30 teams even in the AHL. There'll be 31 next year. Um, I think they've already announced they're expanding up to 31.
Yes, they're adding the Colorado Eagles,
Who will be the St. Louis Blues?
the
Yeah.
St. Louis Blues franchise. That's
Right,
correct.
right now, the Blues kind of sprinkled their players all around the NHL. I think the Providence
Actually, no,
Bruins.
the Colorado Eagles will become the Colorado Avalanche's team,
Okay,
and the St. Louis Blues will take over at the San Antonio Rampage.
right. That's right.
Yep.
That's right.
Yep.
That makes a lot more sense. Because yeah, American hockey or the NHL is a lot of the NHL teams are trying to put their American Hockey League affiliate at least no more than a 3-4 hour drive away from their primary city because they want to be able to keep their players relatively close by so they can not only keep an eye on them, but when they have to make these moves that they can easily get the players up and down. So, all right. So with that said, there's 4 divisions currently in the AHL. You got the Atlantic Division, the North Division, the Central Division, and the Pacific Division. And the way it works for the playoffs is there's no wild card, there's no crossover games. It's just straight up. Top 4 teams from each division make the playoffs. And they have a divisional playoff. And then the 4 division winners go into the semifinals. So you have an Eastern Conference final and a Western Conference final. And then finally, the Calder Cup finals, it pits the champions of the Eastern Conference against the Western Conference. So in the East, you've got right now the Atlantic Division has Lehigh Valley, who is already clinched. Wilkes-Barre Scranton, Providence, and Charlotte are the top 4 teams in that conference, or that division, I mean. And the next team down, Bridgeport, who's the 5th place team, is currently 7 points back of the Charlotte Checkers for the last playoff spot. With oh god, I can't remember how many games. Is it 70 games? There's not many games left.
70 games. I think it is maybe 72, but yeah.
Yeah, and they've all played 67, 68. So the American Hockey League regular season, this is probably their last week of the regular season. So it looks like it's going to end up being Lehigh, Wilkes-Barre, Providence, and Charlotte with the Atlantic Division. Now in the North, you've got Toronto, Syracuse, Rochester, and Utica, who have all clinched their playoff spots. So that means Belleville, Laval, and Binghamton are all on the outside looking in. And there's a significant gap between that 4th place Utica Comets and the 5th place Belleville Senators. 78 points to 57. So big, huge difference. That's why that division is pretty much all sealed up and done. As far as who's playing who hasn't been determined yet, but as far as the 4 teams getting in, it's going to be Toronto, Syracuse, Rochester, and Utica. In the Central Division, it's quite a bit tighter. Number 1 is Chicago. Number 2 is Manitoba. Number 3 is Grand Rapids. Number 4 is Rockford. And number 5 is Iowa. And Iowa is 5 points back of Rockford. So, and Iowa is actually only 10 points out of first place. So it's a lot tighter there. Nobody has clinched a playoff spot in that division. And in the Pacific Division, it's a little bit crazy the way they do things in the Pacific. Because of the Pacific Division having a lot of West Coast teams, 6 out of the 8 teams in that division play fewer games in the AHL season. 6 of the 8 teams have only played 60 or 61 games, whereas Texas and San Antonio have played 68.
Yeah.
And because of that, the AHL doesn't use points in the standings as the determining factor for playoffs. They use win percentage,
Mm-hmm.
or points percentages is probably more accurate. So basically, if you look at, for example, the Tucson Roadrunners are the first place team in the Pacific Division. They have 78 points in 61 games. That equates to a .639 percentage because they have a possible of 122 points right now. So they've gotten 78 out of a possible 122. That's where they come up with the .639. Whereas the Texas Stars are technically the fourth place team in the Pacific Division, but they actually have 79 points, so 1 point more than Tucson. But Texas has played 68 games, where Tucson's only played 61.
Right.
So their winning percentage is .581. So it's a little bit weird how they do things because they reduce the number of games that the Pacific Division plays because of the travel.
Mm-hmm.
They have a lot more travel to do than the other divisions. So that's why the AHL does win percentage versus points for playoff seeding. So in that division, Tucson is in first, Ontario second, San Diego third, Texas fourth, with Stockton being the fifth place team, and San Antonio sixth, Bakersfield seven, and San Jose Barracuda eighth. And it's relatively close between 4 and 5. Therefore, nobody has clinched in that division either. So the West is still wide open. Whereas the East, 5 out of the 8 playoff seeds have already been determined, or 5 out of the 8 playoff teams have already been determined. And in the Atlantic, of course, I didn't mention, but Bridgeport, Hartford, Hershey, and Springfield are the bottom 4 in the Atlantic. So
Yeah, very good.
So it's kind of interesting. You should see how things turn out here as that season winds down.
Very
right.
very interesting.
So it looks like talk about Zubov.
Yes, it looks like our Charlotte Checkers are going to make it, though. I'm happy about that.
Yep, looks like it.
You know, Wayne, when I was browsing the KHL, just keeping abreast of it each week as I do, am I going to add an article or not? I saw the picture of Sergei Zubov, and he is if you see Sergei Zubov, you know who he is. His likeness is rather unique. And when I saw him, I thought about him playing for Iron Mike. Mike Keenan out in China, in Beijing, running the team out there, the Kunlun Red Star. But here he is, Sergei Zubov, and he is the coach of HC Sochi. So I didn't know that.
Oh,
I didn't know that at all. And being a Rangers fan, and
he would be about the right age, though.
He would be about the right age, and he is. And, of course, he won the Stanley Cup of the New York Rangers in 1994, along with Eddie Olczyk, his teammate. But I was very, very pleased to read this article. It's kind of a one-on-one article. I found it to be very interesting insight into a man who was a great defenseman for the New York Rangers. So I wanted to pick that as my minor league hockey minute this week. And the article is entitled Sergei Zubov's This Season's Lesson, Stick to the Plan. HC Sochi head coach, Olympic champion, and Stanley Cup winner Sergei Zubov spoke to KHL.ru about his team's preparedness with the championship, the playoff series against Jokerit, and the fans in Sochi. By the way, I paraphrased this article from KHL.ru. This was a first full season as head coach in the career of legendary Russian defenseman Sergei Zubov. He had accrued a wealth of experience as an assistant and had enjoyed a short spell in charge at SKA before climbing into the hot seat at HC Sochi. He arrived in time to take control of preseason preparations and surpassed the expectations of many when he guided the team to 6th place in the Western Conference. The postseason, however, was short and sweet with a 4-1 first-round exit at the hands of Jokerit Helsinki. How happy are you with the way the season turned out for Sochi? Zubov's response: it turned out to be a positive one for the team. We set ourselves certain goals, one of which was achieved, while the second part fell apart a little at the end. But overall, the season was definitely a step forward for the Sochi club. What mark out of 5 would you give the team for its performance over the championship season? And this was a very telling response here. I'd give them a 4 minus. They make the playoffs, and he gives them a -4 or a 4 minus. So I guess he didn't think his team was not even average.
Yeah.
And a lot of improvement needs to be done. After quite a lengthy break in coaching, did you find the job difficult, particularly bearing in mind it was your first full season as a head coach? There are always difficulties, and you tackle them. It is the same with any job you love and adore. The challenges spur you on. What were the main hockey problems you had to solve during the season? His response was, half the team was new, so during the season we were constantly adjusting the lineup and searching for the best options to move the team forward. You also had problems at uneven strength. Sochi had the league's worst statistics for power play and penalty killing in the regular season. He said, yes, this was a serious problem all through the season, and it continued into the playoffs. These parts of the game are very important in modern hockey, but we still haven't found the key to solving them. You were the first KHL team this season which managed to beat SKA. Did you feel a special motivation with matches against the Petersburg guys? No, he said. We have the same motivation to win every game. I never tire of repeating this. We have to go out, play to win, and battle in every single match. Against SKA, it just so happened it was our day. What was the hardest part of the season? Maybe the very beginning, he said, of the championship. We tried to find our game, get some kind of momentum going for the season, but it was hard to keep a rhythm with such a tricky schedule. The last couple of games before the big pause and the couple of regular season matches after the Olympic break were also far from easy for us. And it's the same thing in the AHL and the NHL. You have that little break, the All-Star break, and you have those things. And boy, most of the team that bounces back from that and does well usually is in the playoffs.
Yep.
Sochi began the playoffs with a victory over Jokerit. Looking back, do you think you could have won the series? And I love this. He's like, yes, of course, because no team is unbeatable. It also depends on the circumstances. Jokerit is a good, skillful, fast, mobile team, and the coaching staff made the wisest selections from what they had. We were a little second best in speed, not just outpaced, but also in the speed of our decision-making. Yes, we managed to contain them in our match, and we stayed in contention in the last couple of games when we had chances to help to keep the series going. But overall, Jokerit was the stronger team. What did the last season teach you? And this is his response: to stick to the plan we chose as a coaching staff and not to deviate from it. Next question. How would you assess the supporters in Sochi? Have the people of the South learned to be real hockey fans? Without a doubt, exclamation point. Even if you ignore the playoffs, by the end of the season, everyone could see what was going on there. We had been getting to know some of the features of local life, and for a coastal resort, and it's on the Black Sea, by the way, Sochi. It is a resort town. That time of year is off-season, so there were not many people in the city, yet we were still attracting crowds of 8,000 or 9,000 and higher. This was very satisfying and a good indication that the club and its policies towards the fans and towards further development are heading in the right direction. Final question. The vacation season looms. How do you plan to spend the summer? In May, we have the World Championships, so we will watch that. We will rest for a couple of weeks in June, and then we start preparing for the new season. But my number one goal for the couple of weeks after that is to spend some time with my family. So just a real quick look inside a guy who played in the NHL for a long, long time.
Yep.
I don't know how many years. I wouldn't be surprised if it was 20 seasons. But he played a long, long time in the NHL. He had a long career. And I had no idea he was a coach in the KHL, but that's his viewpoint on the season with HC Soji.
Yeah. Well, good. And he's going to be sticking around there for sure then.
Yeah, it sounds like it.
Yep. All right. Well, I actually found late last night, and this was after I had picked my minor league hockey minute. I definitely wanted to talk about the American Hockey League this week. But I also found, I don't know if you saw it, but the Continental Hockey League had their board of directors meeting.
Yes, I read this article too. Almost.
Yep. So I want to get into this. We don't really have time for it tonight, and it's not something that's really too timely because it's talking about rule changes. It's basically their version of the GM meetings that we had last week. But they talk about a number of different changes to their league and stuff. I want to get into this, but we'll talk about it next week. I'll probably just make it my minor league hockey minute for next week, so we can get into this. But this was an interesting article talking about some upcoming changes to the KHL structure and
The teams and everything.
yeah, so a lot of changes there. So we'll get into this on next week's podcast. So in the meantime, let's go ahead and move on. And we will go ahead and talk about some college hockey.
Yes, sir.
And let me pull up because I have the bracket somewhere right there. All right. We need to talk college hockey. College hockey right now is down to the NCAA tournament. So if anybody who's not played in the tournament, they have been eliminated from college hockey and their season has ended. So going into the weekend or coming out of last week's podcast, there were 16 teams in the tournament left. And we are now sitting at just 4 teams. And before we get into it, let's just recap what had happened over the past weekend. How we whittled our way from 16 down to 4. First and foremost, in the West region, you had St. Cloud State playing Air Force and Minnesota State playing Minnesota Duluth. Air Force came out with the 4-1 huge upset because St. Cloud State was the number 1 team in the entire tournament, which means Air Force was the number 16. And we saw that happen earlier in the week where a 16 beat a 1 in college basketball. Well, it happened in hockey this week as well, as Air Force beats St. Cloud State and makes them a one-and-done team.
Yep.
Going from a tournament favorite to out, just like that. And it was the first game of the entire tournament, too, which makes it even more interesting. It was a Friday, 3 o'clock in the afternoon.
Yep.
There was only one other game that was played that early, and everything else played after that. So that was a nice stepping-off point for this tournament. Then the other game, Minnesota State, Minnesota Duluth. Minnesota Duluth comes away with the 3-2 win in that one, and that was an overtime game. So that was a fun – I caught the end of that one. That was a fun game to watch. And then the West Region Championship was Air Force versus Minnesota Duluth, and Minnesota Duluth came away with a 2-1 win in that game. So Minnesota Duluth moves on to the Frozen Four out of the West. In the Midwest, Ohio State played Princeton in the first game and won that one 4-2. Denver played Penn State in the other game in the Midwest region, and Denver won that one pretty easily 5-1 over Penn State, despite Penn State being essentially a quasi-home team where that region was played in Allentown, PA. So the championship game of that region was Ohio State versus Denver, and Ohio State comes out with the big 5-1 win in that one. So Ohio State moves on to the Final Four, or Frozen Four, sorry. Can't say Final Four when you're talking hockey. NCAA will slap you with a lawsuit. They basically created lawsuit against themselves because it used to be known as the Hockey Final Four. Now it's the Frozen Four. So Ohio State moves on in the Frozen Four. In the Northeast region, played at Worcester, Mass. Boston University hosted Cornell, or actually Cornell was the home team, the quote-unquote home team in that game. And Boston University with the upset in that one, 3-1. And in the other game of that region, Michigan played Northeastern. And Northeastern essentially was the home team in that one, with it being played so close to Boston. But despite that, Michigan comes away with the 3-2 win in that one. So Boston University played Michigan in the championship of that region, and Michigan comes away the winner in that one, 6-3. So Michigan moves on to the Frozen Four. And in the final region, you have East. You had Notre Dame playing Michigan Tech in the first game. That was the other early Friday game that was played against the St. Cloud game. And Notre Dame came away with a 4-3 overtime win in that one. I watched the tail end of that game. That was a thrilling win.
Thrilling game.
For Notre Dame. Very fun to watch. And then in the other game of that region was Providence against Clarkson, and that one ended up a 1-0 game. So you hockey purists that like low-scoring games would have been happy with that one. I don't particularly care for 1-0 games, but anyway, because Providence scored early in that game, and just Clarkson could never get the tying goal.
Yeah.
Providence eventually held on for the win in that one. So that put Notre Dame and Providence in the championship game of that region. And again, another close game, but Notre Dame comes away with a 2-1 win in that one. So we have an all-West Frozen Four this year. All four teams play in conferences that are considered Western conferences. Minnesota Duluth will play Ohio State in the first semifinal, and Michigan will play Notre Dame in the second semifinal. And both those games will be held on April 5th. So they won't have any games. They skip a week they don't try to get in the way because the basketball Final Four is this weekend. So
Right.
they don't try to steal any thunder from that because they know they have no shot against basketball. So they'll play the following weekend, April 5th and 7th, where hockey will have the stage to themselves in terms of college sports. So it'll be Minnesota Duluth, Ohio State in the first game on April 5th, Michigan, Notre Dame in the second. And no offense to you, I know you kind of pull for Notre Dame a little bit, but I'd love to see a Michigan-Ohio State national championship game.
Yeah.
I would love to see that.
Yeah.
That would be a fun game. And the championship game is Saturday night, April 7th at 6:30 p.m. at XL Energy Center in St. Paul, Minnesota.
Yes.
ESPN will have that game.
Yes, that's right. I thought it was ESPN2 has the first as the semifinals.
Yep. And like I said, my heart says Notre Dame, Michigan. Michigan, Ohio State for the championship, but I think this is Notre Dame's tournament to lose.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah, Notre Dame's looking really good right now. So.
Wow. I really thought that game against Providence, I was biting my nails the whole time.
Yep.
Providence
Providence is no slouch of a team. They're a top 10
Providence
team.
is good. Yep.
They're a good team.
They really are.
So, and I think Notre Dame out of these four is the best remaining team in this tournament. So, but I'd love to see a Michigan-Ohio State national championship game. That'll bring a whole new meaning to that school rivalry.
Oh, you're not kidding. That really will.
Yep.
Yep.
So, all right. So stay tuned for college hockey. Probably won't even have a college hockey minute next week because nothing will have happened by this time next week. We'll still be in anticipation of the semifinal games. So we'll probably skip college hockey minute next week altogether because nothing's going on between now and then. All right. Let's move on to the picks of the week.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
And I like your story better, so I'm going to let you go last.
Okay.
Mine's just a cute little story about this kid, and I saw this video earlier in the season. This kid by the name of Roman Marcotte. He is, I believe he's from Alaska. And there's a link in the show notes to this article that has a link to his little video. He's a little 9-year-old kid. And they showed him doing basically his version of the puck control relay that they do in the skills competition, in the NHL skills competition, where he's weaving in and out of cones, weaving in and out of pucks. doing just basically shooting up and down his own little backyard rink, just handling the puck. And it is amazing to watch this little kid wearing a Sidney Crosby jersey, of course.
Wow.
Stick handle the puck. You've got to see the video if you haven't seen it yet. But there's a link in the show notes to it. Well, Sidney Crosby and the Pittsburgh Penguins saw this video, and they invited him to come down and spend some time with the Penguins. So they flew him down from him and his dad from Anchorage, Alaska, down to Pittsburgh to basically hang out in the locker room. They introduced him at the game, and he basically spent the entire week with the team.
Unbelievable.
And he said in his interview with the team website, they asked him what his goals in life are, and he said, "My goal is to be in the championship with my home team, and then to be in the NHL." He said. And they asked him who his favorite team was, and obviously he answered Pittsburgh Penguins. And of course, his favorite player, Sid the Kid.
Yeah.
So very cool experience for this little kid. But yeah, the main point in this thing is if you want to see this little 9-year-old stick handle the puck, it reminds me a lot of the videos that surfaced 10 years or so ago by this kid named Oliver Wahlstrom, who was playing for the Junior Portland Pirates in a mini one-on-one shootout competition played at TD Garden that airs on Nesson. And he made a couple of spectacular breakaway moves that no 9-year-old should know how to do. And lo and behold, here we are 9-10 years later, and Oliver Wahlstrom is projected to be at probably a top 5 pick in this upcoming draft. At the very least, a top 10 pick.
Yeah, amazing.
So
that's amazing.
So to have the skills that he had at 9 years old, and he continued to develop, and now he's one of the top undrafted prospects in the world. So it makes me want to follow this little guy, Roman Marcotte, to see what comes of his future.
Yeah, that's absolutely incredible. That really is. I did not know that about Oliver Wahlstrom.
Yep.
And he's undrafted right now?
Yeah, he'll be drafted this spring.
He's OHL?
Where is he? No, he's playing for Team USA, the National Development Program.
Development team. Okay. Yep. Very good.
Yep.
Well, that's a great story.
Yep.
That's very good.
All right.
Wayne, Saturday was a big day. Remember me saying last week, Saturday was a big day. Big day. Notre Dame was playing. I got to watch Notre Dame win. I got to watch the Rangers win against the Buffalo Sabres. So I was batting 1,000. And as I'm sitting there, I didn't even know this. I had no clue this happened. And I really didn't know a lot about this game. I do remember the bench clearing brawl a few years back. I think it was 3 or 4 years ago in the Barclays Center, I believe it was. But this is a tradition that goes on every year in the New York metropolitan area. And that is the fire department of New York plays an annual game, a hockey game. I believe it's for charity, against the New York Police Department. And if you don't think that it's serious, these guys take this game very seriously. Oh, yeah. It's like a little mini bean pot in New York City.
Yep.
Between the first responders, really, the guys that keep the city and people around there safe. So my pick of the week this week, when I saw this, Bill Pito on MSG going over, I scanned the news trying to find an article, and I actually found a couple, but didn't go into great detail. So some of this is my own chicken scratch. But the fire department of New York and the New York Police Department played their game on Saturday before the Sabres game at Madison Square Garden. Yep. And it was a sellout. There were no seats left. Every seat was sold, a complete sellout for that game. The article that I found is titled FDNY NYPD Honor Fallen Firefighter Michael Davidson at Madison Square Garden. The article goes like this. The 45th annual FDNY NYPD hockey game began Saturday at Madison Square Garden with a pause to honor Fire Department of New York Lieutenant Michael Davidson, killed 2 days earlier in a Harlem building fire. The sold-out crowd for the yearly battle between the two departments stood mute to remember the 37-year-old father of four, all under the age of 7. Emotions ran just as high on the ice once the game started, as a couple of fights erupted and skaters from both teams were dispatched to the penalty box for overzealous antics. Honored along with Davidson were his fellow firefighters Christopher Zanettis and Christopher Raguso, both killed in a March 15th helicopter crash in Iraq while serving with the New York Air National Guard. The brother of firefighter William Trolley, who fell from a Queens roof to his death last April, was cheered at center ice as he arrived to drop the puck for the opening faceoff. He was accompanied by Trolley's widow, Marie, who appeared choked up as her brother-in-law waved to the crowd in gratitude for their support. The game was tied 4-4 after regulation, with the firefighters triumphing on their 6th shot in a shootout with the New York Police Department squad. The FDNY hockey team, which marked its 50th anniversary this year, leads the series all-time with a mark of 25-18-2. I was very impressed with the passion that was exhibited on the ice. This is me personally. I watched these guys, and they can score goals.
Oh, they're good. They're good players.
Very good goaltending. These guys are.
Yep.
I wouldn't be surprised if they're semi-pro players. Great goaltending, and the fans were treated to a shootout in the end. You could also listen to this game broadcast live in its entirety on ESPN 98.7 The Fan with Don LaGreca and Rick DiPietro. And I just had no idea that this game carried the impact that it does. And I'm a New Yorker, and I knew they played each year. And as I said, I remember that bench clearing brawl where so many guys got in a fight a few years back. But I had no idea that it had this kind of status, that it would sell out Madison Square Garden.
Yep.
But it is a great game. If you're a hockey fan, and you can get The Fan, a lot of times you can pick that up on the computer, on radio, national broadcast radio. You could listen to that game, and you actually can listen to it right now. If you pull up the article, FDNY versus the New York Police Department, you can actually pull up the third period, which was archived from that game, and listen to it. Quite an exciting time, and to listen to Bill Peto's description of the game. I think Ron Duguay also put in his 2 cents about how great it was to watch that game. So that's my pick of the week.
Yep.
Thank you.
And I'd like to add too. Yeah, these two are basically got the whole fire department versus police department kind of rivalries kicked off all throughout the country, really. Boston does something very similar. The Boston Police and the Boston Fire play a game against each other, and this is very, very high-level hockey. These guys played at a very high level in high school. Some of them even played in college, and some may have even played a little bit of minor league hockey before they decided that they weren't going to be the next NHL star and decided to get a real job. And some of them decided to end up, playing or getting a job as a firefighter or a police officer.
Right.
But you see, the New York has a team. Boston definitely has teams. Philadelphia has teams that are all well known. And all the smaller cities even have teams. I know the city of Bangor, Maine. They actually don't have enough guys that are hockey players that are working for the fire department and police to make two different teams. But what they have is they have a team they call Third Watch, and it's actually a combined fire department and police department team where firefighters, police officers play together on the same team, and they go and play in tournaments against other cities' fire departments. I mean, yeah, this is a thing between fire departments and police departments, and it's led by the NYPD, and they have tryouts. They have I mean, you got to be good. You got to be a real good player to play on either one of those teams. And,
Absolutely. Those guys are very skilled players.
Yep.
Um,
And it just doesn't surprise me that it sells out the Garden because it's a big event every year now in New York to
yep.
play in that game.
Absolutely incredible, Wayne. I had no idea until I watched this weekend. Now, as I said, I knew that game took place each year, but I had no idea that it was that popular. That it would make. I mean, the Fan is the major sports network radio in New York.
Yep.
If you're going to listen to the Jets or the Giants, you're going to listen to a broadcast of a professional sports team. You tune into the Fan if you lived in New York City.
Yep. And I'm not sure if you mentioned it, but this year's game was won by the fire department. So
that's right. Fire department won 5-4 in the shootout, and the save that the fire department goalie, and I don't have his name in front of me, made to stop the New York Police Department in the 6th round of the shootout to allow them to a 5-4 victory was absolutely incredible. He stopped it with his right pad, then got up and jumped up and down on the ice in celebration. It's fascinating to watch.
Yep.
It really is amazing. If you pull up the article, if you pull up FDNY versus NYPD 2018, you'll get to see replays of it. And it's a fascinating tape to watch.
Yep, it certainly was. Certainly was. I did find it, and I've actually was playing it in the background while you were talking. So, so if you happen to watch the replay, or if you're watching live on the YouTube channel, you'll be able to see the short little 45-second highlight package that I found anyway while you were talking. So, and they did show that save. It was an incredible save. So,
yeah.
But yeah, you could see just in that short clip how skilled those players are. So, well, good. Great story. All right. It is time to wrap things up.
Yeah, we got to wrap it up.
Because I actually have to go to Greensboro tonight. So, my daughter's coming in from school. I got to go pick her up. So,
very good.
So, she gets in at 9:30. So, I got to go head out and do that later on. So, it'll be a nice night with me and the dog to go out and go get her. So, yeah. We'll go ahead and wrap things up then, and another big week. Got even a bigger week coming up with the closing of the regular season. We'll be heading into the final weekend of the regular season when we record next. So we should know at least about 90% not only who the playoff teams are going to be, but who's gonna play who in the first round.
That's right.
So we can start making our predictions probably next week on who we think is going to win.
That's always exciting.
Yep. So we'll have that next week. And, of course, we'll have more information on the Board of Governors meeting the KHL, or Board of Directors, I think is what they call them there. And, yeah, we'll have all the news of the week that comes up between now and then. So stay tuned. All right. So with that, we'll go ahead and end it this week. And until next week, we'll talk to you later, Steve.
Have a good week, Wayne.
All right, you too.
Just working with you.
Yep.
Night.
All right.
That went good. I had no idea that you knew about that. I really didn't know.
Yeah, I learned about it years ago when I when it was involved in the beer leagues up in Maine.
Oh, okay.
When they put together the Bangor, Maine third watch team, I knew the captain of that team pretty well, and they basically have a third watch regular team that plays in the local men's league there, and then they have the traveling third watch team, which they pick up a couple of decent players to help them because they're going against the Bostons and the Philadelphias and them. They need to pick up a few players that may not necessarily be firefighters or police officers, but are pretty decent hockey players. So they have to kind of cheat a little bit because just due to numbers. I mean,
right.
Bangor PD and Fire is not anywhere near as big as Boston or New York or anything like that. So. And even with the extra players they pick up, they usually get their butts kicked by some of those bigger cities because they just have more guys to pull from and they can put together a better team. So, So I was aware that they do go play, and it is all for charity. That they're all raising money for various organizations. And it's a good little side thing. I'd love to go attend an NYPD versus FDNY game. That would be
Oh,
a lot of fun.
absolutely.
To
I
go
mean, it would be
watch
thrilling.
one of those.
What I wonder is how the Garden handles that. I guess, do they dismiss everybody? Because the people buying those tickets, don't turn around and go to the Sabres game. I imagine there are two different sets of tickets.
Oh, did it take the place on the same day of a Ranger game?
Yeah, the Rangers game was broadcast Saturday night, the 24th at 7 o'clock. So I'm
And their
assuming
game was when?
Yeah,
Saturday
well,
afternoon.
yeah, Saturday. It had to be Saturday afternoon. So I imagine I guess they
Got everybody out. Yeah.
they must do it that way. I don't know how. I'm sure most people head for the exits if they don't have tickets to the night game.
Well, it's no different than like basketball and hockey in the same night when the Knicks and Rangers play.
Right.
Like Knicks in the afternoon, Rangers at night, or vice versa.
Yep.
Bruins have it all the time. Celtics game in the afternoon, or usually it's hockey in the matinee, and then Celtics at night. And yeah, while they're changing the floor out, they're getting everybody out of the building, except for members of the press and whatnot. And it's not even the same press that covers Celtics and Bruins, so
Right.
they're changing them out too. But they're doing that while they're changing the floor out, and in this case, all they really got to do is resurface the ice. It'd be nice if they televised that game, like nationally.
I would not be surprised if, based on the skill of those players,
Yeah,
that they wouldn't do that.
yeah, there was some good players there.
Yeah.
So, all right, well, good.
Yeah.
I gotta leave here in about. Takes me about 45 minutes to get there, so about 15, 20 minutes I gotta leave.
Okie doke. Let you go, man. Good working with you.
All right. Have a good night.
You too. Have a good week.
All right. Yeah, you
Hope
too.
hope you get feeling better.
Yeah.
It's probably allergies.
No, it was started with like that 24-hour bug, and then it's just slowly worked its way down in there. Yeah.
Hey.
So I get it every year. It happens all the time.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay. You take care.
Have a good night.
We'll talk to you now.
All right. See ya.
Bye-bye now.